Okay, tonight is the 2nd of August 2011, and this is the 17th night we're talking on the Digha Nikaya Suttas. Tonight we come to Sutta 22, Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the greater Satipatthana discourse. This in the Digha Nikaya, this is one of the more technical suttas. Thus have I heard. Once the Lord was staying among the Kurus. There is a market town of theirs called Kammasadhamma, and there the Lord addressed the monks. Monks, Lord, they replied, and the Lord said, there is, monks, this one-way path to the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and distress, for the disappearance of pain and sadness, for the gaining of the right path, for the realization of Nibbana, that is to say, the 4 intense states of mindfulness. What are the 4? Here, monks, a monk abides contemplating body in the body, ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. He abides contemplating feelings in feelings. He abides contemplating mind in mind. He abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma, ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. Stop here for a moment. There are some books they translate. There is, monks, the only way. There is the only way to the purification of beings. The Pali word is ekayano mago, and the more correct translation, the Venerable Bhikkhu Nyanamoli, the English monk who has passed on, he translated as the path leading one way only. That's the meaning. This Satipatthana, it leads only to the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and distress. It is not the only way, because the only way is actually the Noble Eightfold Path. And inside the Noble Eightfold Path, you have the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas. And Satipatthana comprises the 4 Satipatthana inside there. So 4 out of 37, it is not the only way. There's also the Iddhipada, there's also the right Vayama, the 4 bases of psychic power, the 4 right efforts, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 factors of enlightenment, the Bojjhangas, and the 8 Noble Eightfold Path. These make up 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas. So, Satipatthana is one of the several things you need to practice. So it is not the only way. It is the path leading one way only. Or here you can say one way path. And a monk abides contemplating body in the body. Kaye kayanupasi viharati, dwells contemplating or abides contemplating the body in the body. This is the literal translation, the body in the body. So, what it means is, you see, for example, one of the bodies mentioned later is the breath body. So when you contemplate the breath body, you notice the breath going in and the breath going out, going in, going out. But the mind, our mind is a very efficient thing. So while you are contemplating your breath, thoughts can come in. You can be thinking about your office, you can be thinking about your family and all that. And yet you are still mindful of your breathing. So that is not contemplating the breathing in the breathing. You are contemplating the breathing among many thoughts. So here it says contemplating the breathing in the breathing. devoid of other things. That's why it says, abides contemplating the body in the body, not any other thing. Ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. This hankering and fretting is sometimes translated as covetousness and grief for the world. And how, monks, does a monk abide contemplating the body in the body? Here a monk, having gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or to an empty place, sits down cross-legged, holding his body erect, having established mindfulness before him. Mindfully he breathes in, mindfully he breathes out. Breathing in a long breath, he knows that he breathes in a long breath. And breathing out a long breath, he knows that he breathes out a long breath. Breathing in a short breath, he knows that he breathes in a short breath. And breathing out a short breath, he knows that he breathes out a short breath. Let's stop here for a moment. So here, what do you mean by having established mindfulness before him? When you have mindfulness before you, that means you are in full view of mindfulness. Practicing in full view of mindfulness. You are not seeing any other thing. Only having mindfulness in front of you. He trains himself thinking, I will breathe in, conscious of the whole body. He trains himself thinking, I will breathe out, conscious of the whole body. He trains himself thinking, I will breathe in, calming the whole bodily volition. This one is kaya sankara. He trains himself thinking, I will breathe out, calming the whole bodily volition. Just as a skilled turner or his assistant in making a long turn knows that he is making a long turn, and in making a short turn knows that he is making a short turn. So too a monk in breathing in a long breath knows that he breathes in a long breath, and so trains himself thinking, I will breathe out, calming the whole bodily volition. I stop here for a moment. So here, when he talks about the whole body, it's the whole breath body. So you are conscious of the breath body. But later books like the Visuddhimagga, they tell you to be conscious of your tip of your nose or of your upper lip. But that is not conscious of the breath body. Here the sutta says, conscious of the breath body. So if you want, you can follow the breath in and out. There's nothing wrong with following the breath in and out. And then, or some people, they want to notice the breath, say, inside the nostril, the breath going in. I can feel the breath going to the nostril and going out like that. Whichever is obvious to you, you have to make it very natural. You must not, what they say, si pan, because each person in meditation, each person, a particular technique might suit one person, it might not suit another. So you have to experiment and find out what is natural to you. So he is conscious of the breath body, and then he calms the bodily volition. This bodily volition, kaya sankara, is the breathing. In the dependent origination, when they talk about volition or sankhara there is volition, and they talk about three types of sankhara, kaya sankhara, vachi sankhara, and chitta sankhara. That is in dependent origination. And kaya sankhara, it is mentioned, it is specifically breathing. Vachi sankhara is thinking, because when you want to speak, you must think. Then only you start speaking. And chitta sankhara is perception and feeling. When you have perception and feeling, it means also that you have consciousness. Only when you have consciousness, the mind can start to work. So for the body to live, for the body to function, you got to have breathing. If there's no breathing, the body will die. So the volition, the body volition, for the body to, exist, for the body to function. The breath starts, without the breath, the body cannot function. That's why the body volition is the breathing. So he calms the breathing, and then if he breathes in short, he knows it's a short breath. If he breathes in long, he knows it's a long breath. Just like a scale turner. Okay. So he abides contemplating body in the body internally, contemplating body in the body externally, contemplating body in the body both internally and externally. He abides contemplating arising factors in the body. He abides contemplating vanishing factors in the body. He abides contemplating both arising and vanishing factors in the body. Or else, mindfulness that there is a body is present to him just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating body in the body. Stop here for a moment. So here, contemplating the body in the body internally is contemplating your own breath. Here we are talking about breath, or your own body. And contemplating body in the body externally is other people's body, there's other people's breath. And these arising factors, the Pali is samudaya dhamma, and vanishing factors is vaya dhamma. Samudaya dhamma, you can see, is arising states in the body and vanishing states in the body. But the great translator, Bhikkhu Nyanamoli, he has translated it as arising factors in the body and vanishing factors in the body. In other words, the factors that make for the arising of the body and the factors that make for the vanishing of the body. Okay. Again, the monk, when walking, knows that he is walking. When standing, knows that he is standing. When sitting, knows that he is sitting. When lying down, knows that he is lying down. In whatever way his body is disposed, he knows that that is how it is. So he abides contemplating body in the body internally, externally, and both internally and externally. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating the body in the body. Stop here for a moment. So this last part is about the four postures, to be aware or mindful of the four postures. Now we come to sampajanya, clear awareness. Again, a monk, when going forward or back, is clearly aware of what he is doing, or mindful of what he is doing. In looking forward or back, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. In bending and stretching, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. In carrying his inner and outer robe and his bowl, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. In eating, drinking, chewing and severing, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. In passing excrement or urine, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. In walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep and waking up, in speaking or in staying silent, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. So he abides contemplating the body in the body internally, externally, and both internally and externally. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating body in the body. So here, another practice is mindfulness, general mindfulness. Whatever you are doing, you are aware, you are in the here and now. As I mentioned the other day, a lot of people, they are not in the here and now. Their minds are elsewhere. So, for example, they are cutting the vegetable, and if their mind goes elsewhere, they'll cut their finger. So it's dangerous. Or if you're walking in the road and you're thinking of your this and that, then you might fall into the drain by the roadside. So, or get knocked down by a car because you're not mindful what's going on around you So this sampajanya, but sampajanya, general mindfulness, is not so important as sati Sati is being aware of only 4 objects the body, feelings, mind, or dhamma You can only be aware of one thing at a time So either you're aware or mindful of the body, or of feelings, or of the mind, or of dhamma. It's a specific sati. Is a specific mindfulness. It is not general mindfulness. Whereas here sampajanya is general mindfulness. General mindfulness is more basic. Is more elementary. Just like you have to go to elementary school before you can go to university. So you notice that sati is a factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. Because it is important, it is a factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. But general mindfulness here, sampajanya, is not a factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. Sampajanya or general mindfulness is something that you have to start with. After you learn to be mindful generally, then only you direct your mindfulness to a specific object. One of the 4 objects of sati, then you only then you enter you are practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. You are practicing general mindfulness, you are not practicing the Noble Eightfold Path because it's not a factor in there. So these are the various things you can practice concerning the body. One is the breath body, another one is the 4 postures of your body, whether you're walking, standing, sitting, or lying down. And then general mindfulness of what you are doing. Now we come to the 32 parts of the body. Again, the monk reviews this very body from the soles of the feet upwards and from the scalp downwards, enclosed by the skin and full of manifold impurities. In this body, there are head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone, marrow, kidney, heart, liver, pleura, spleen, lung, mesentery, bowels, stomach, excrement, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, tallow, saliva, snot, synovic fluid, urine. Just as if there were a bag open at both ends, full of various kinds of grain, such as hill rice, paddy, green gram, kidney beans, sesame, husk rice, and a man with good eyesight were to open the bag and examine them, saying, "This is hill rice, this is paddy, this is green gram, these are kidney beans, this is sesame, this is husk rice." So too, a monk reviews this very body. In this body there are head hairs, etc., etc. So he abides contemplating body in the body internally, externally, and both internally and externally. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating the body in the body. So here, this is also called the asubha, this meditation on the impurities or the unattractiveness of the body. We are so used to seeing a body only externally. And as they say, beauty is skin deep. When you see somebody and you think she is very beautiful or he is very handsome, you are only talking about the outer skin, skin deep. But when you contemplate all these parts inside the body, then that person is no more so beautiful or so handsome. All these unpleasant things inside the body. Here, I think there's no brain. Sometimes they put the brain inside here, making 32 parts. Sometimes they don't put the brain, so there is 31 parts. Now we come to the 4 elements. Again, a monk reviews this body, however it may be placed or disposed, in terms of the elements. There are in this body the earth element, water element, fire element, air element, or wind element. Just as if a skilled butcher or his assistant, having slaughtered a cow, were to sit at a crossroads with the carcass divided into portions. So a monk reviews this very body in terms of the elements. There are in this body the earth element, water element, fire element, air element. So he abides contemplating body in the body internally, etc. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating the body in the body. So here, this is contemplating the body in terms of the four elements. In the suttas, rupa, the physical world, is composed of four things: earth element, water, fire, and wind element. The earth element represents hardness or softness. When anything is hard, you say that is the earth element. The water element is anything that's liquid. Liquids tend to cohere together. So anything liquid, call it the water element. The fire element is the heat element. Anything that is hot or cold, lacking heat, that is the fire element. The air or wind element is anything that moves. Because there is the air element inside us, so our blood moves, and our winds inside us move either out through our mouth and nose as we burp, out to the anus, and the breathing also. So all this is the wind element. So this physical world being composed of these four elements. If you think carefully, these four elements are just a perception. For example, hot or cold is just a perception. Hard or soft is also a perception. Movement is also a perception. So this perception is a kind of consciousness. Is a kind of consciousness. So actually, if you consider carefully, the physical world is also in consciousness. It's only a movement of the mind that you think there is a physical world. Now we come to the cemetery or the corpse contemplations. Again, a monk, as if he were to see a corpse thrown aside in the charnel ground or in the cemetery. 1, 2, or 3 days dead, bloated, discolored, festering, compares this body with that, thinking, this body is of the same nature. That means my body is same as this corpse. It will become like that. It is not exempt from that fate. So he abides contemplating body in the body internally, externally, and both internally and externally. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. That, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating the body in the body. So here we are contemplating the corpse. So the first type of corpse is 1, 2, or 3 days dead and is bloated and discolored and festering, smelly and all that. So when you look at this corpse, you think one day my body also will be like that. Nothing to be vain about the body. The second type of corpse, again the monks, as if he were to see a corpse in a charnel ground, thrown aside, eaten by crows, hawks or vultures, by dogs or jackals, or various other creatures, compares this body with that, thinking, this body is of the same nature, it will become like that, it is not exempt from that fate. So this second type of corpse is being eaten by crows, hawks or vultures. They are tearing it apart, because after a few days, the flesh becomes soft, rotten, and the dogs and jackals, etc., are eating it up. So we think carefully, one day all of us, our bodies also will become like that. When we are young, we are very vain. We think our body is so beautiful, we think you are so strong and all that. But in a short time, you'll be old and you'll become a corpse and you'll be exactly like this. Again, a monk, as if he were to see a corpse in a charnel ground, thrown aside, a skeleton with flesh and blood, connected by sinews, this is the third one. And then a fleshless skeleton smeared with blood, connected by sinews, this is the fourth. And then the skeleton detached from the flesh and blood, connected by sinews, this is the fifth. And then randomly connected bones scattered in all directions, a hand bone here, a foot bone there, a shin bone here, a thigh bone there, a hip bone here, a spine here, a skull there, compares this body with that. This is the sixth. state of decay of the corpse. Again, the monk, as if he were to see a corpse in a charnel ground, thrown aside, the bones whiten, looking like shells. This is the 7th. And then the bones piled up a year old. This is the 8th. And then the bones rotted away to powder. This is the 9th. Compares this body with that, thinking this body is of the same nature. It will become like that. It is not exempt from that fate. So he abides contemplating the body in the body internally, contemplating body in the body externally, abides contemplating body in the body both internally and externally. He abides contemplating arising factors in the body, contemplating vanishing factors in the body. He abides contemplating both arising and vanishing factors in the body, or else mindfulness that there is body is present to him just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness, and he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating the body in the body. Stop here for a moment. So here we consider the corpse going through the various stages of decay. First it is 1 or 2 or 3 days dead. Then later it is being torn apart by these animals who are eating up the flesh. Then it becomes a skeleton with flesh and blood, flesh sticking here and there, and blood, and still there are sinews. And then the 4th, there's no more flesh, it's just a skeleton smeared with blood, but you still have sinews. And then the 5th is a skeleton detached from the flesh and blood, connected by sinews. And then randomly connected bones scattered in all directions. The bones are all scattered already. And then later the bones become white, looking like shells, the scattered bones. And then a year later, the bones are all piled up. Somebody has piled up the bones. And then later, much later, the bones rotted away to become powder. You don't see the flesh, you don't see the skeleton, you don't see the sinews, nothing left, just the powder which is mixed with the sand and the earth. You can't recognize it also. So there is the various stages of decay of the body, our body, how later our body will go through all these things. And how, monks, does a monk abide contemplating feelings in feelings? Here a monk, feeling a pleasant feeling, knows that he feels a pleasant feeling. Feeling a painful feeling, he knows that he feels a painful feeling. Feeling a feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant, he knows that he feels a feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. Feeling a pleasant sensual feeling, he knows that he feels a pleasant sensual feeling. Feeling a pleasant non-sensual feeling, he knows that he feels a pleasant non-sensual feeling. Feeling a painful sensual feeling, feeling a painful non-sensual feeling, feeling a sensual feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant, feeling a non-sensual feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. He knows that he feels a non-sensual feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. So he abides contemplating feelings in feelings internally. He abides contemplating feelings in feelings externally. He abides contemplating arising factors in feelings, vanishing factors, and both arising and vanishing factors in feelings. Or else, mindfulness that there is feeling is present to him just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating feelings in feelings. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, we are contemplating feelings, so you are aware of these feelings, but you can also try to practice equanimity, and also you can also ask why you feel so. Sometimes when, for example, somebody says something unpleasant to us, and then we don't like it, and then we get angry, for example. Then you ask yourself, why am I angry? Is it because of hatred in me, ill will? Or is it because of greed? I couldn't get something I wanted, so I'm very angry. So is it because of my ego? Somebody says something I can't stand. So if you contemplate, then you find who is angry. It's the ego that's angry. The ego cannot stand. The ego, then you consider the ego is not me. So you have to examine why you react in a certain way. Why can't you just be happy? Don't let your feelings move you. We are much moved by our feelings. It causes a lot of dukkha. So if you allow the feelings to move you, then you are not in control of your feelings. Then you suffer a lot. You find people who are emotional, they suffer a lot.